think all of us will say something, but I think what we've all seen is 4 days of just partisanship. This has been a very partisan process through this whole charade. If you look, I've been putting out tweets all day about what Democrat senators have said in the past about the impeachment of Bill Clinton, and these individuals have come down here and said just the opposite of what they said back in 1999, and they've been doing it day after day. So I'm looking forward to the White House tomorrow, starting to set the record straight. Because this has just been partisan. They've said the same thing. I don't know how many times I've seen Ambassador Sondland and Fiona Hill and all of them basically say the exact same thing. But I don't believe anything they've said so far is impeachable. But I do look forward to watching the White House present their case.
This is the fourth day that we've heard the Democrats make their arguments. Final arguments are going to be tonight. But I will tell you, they've run out of things to say about 3 days ago. That's because the case that they're presenting is weak and it's flimsy, even though they on the floor have said that they have a rock-solid case, that the evidence is overwhelming, and that it is a mountain of evidence. Well, if they've already presented an overwhelming amount, a mountain of evidence, rock-solid evidence, then there should be no need for additional witnesses because they have made their case. Tomorrow, the White House is going to be able to make its case, and for the first time, the defense of the president will be made for the public to see.
The main thing you need to pay attention to is this is now the fourth version of what we've heard from the House. And I've watched the three before, behind closed doors, what was leaked out, public version, the four constitutional experts, and there is not one new thing other than exaggeration, using words like overwhelming, and the dynamic is going to change tomorrow because you're going to finally hear the counterpoint. When you do this in a vacuum and you keep repeating the same thing, you're not going to win this by time of possession. You got to start telling us what's different from what we've heard before. And you're going to finally hear that when we get our counterpoint starting tomorrow.
Well, I am like Senator Barrasso. I'm waiting to hear that mountain of overwhelming evidence. And they have a little over 3 hours, I think, yet this evening where they can present that overwhelming evidence. I just can't wait to hear it. So basically true with everything that we've heard. It's been over and over and over again, repetition of the previous day's points, our previous points. But I want to go back because it was brought up, of course, again today, the fact that the president held on to funding for approximately 2 months for lethal aid to Ukraine. And the House managers keep centering on that. They keep going back to that point. But I would remind them that Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. 2014 under the previous administration. That administration had every opportunity to present lethal aid to the Ukrainian people and allow them to push back on Russian invaders. And yet they did not do that. They did not do that for 2 years, folks. 2 years. And yet we're acting like this is something new, that Russia has invaded this vulnerable country. They keep going back to that, but not willing to recognize it was their own party, their own president that refused to take a stand against Russia and instead cozied up to them and decided not to take a stance to help our friends in Ukraine and allow Russia to invade and gain a foothold for 2 years. President Trump has done more for Ukraine in his short time in office than President Obama did when he had the opportunity to provide that aid to the Ukrainian people. Thousands of Ukrainian lives have been lost because President Obama didn't take that stand. President Trump has.
I'll make a short statement. I see that Jay is also right behind us as well. I was a little frustrated with this morning because the previous 2 days they were going through content, but it was the same content over and over. Everybody likes content. This morning's focus, or from 1 o'clock on, focus was really speculation. It was almost like conspiracy theories and speculation. We think this may be the secret motive behind it, kind of stuff without any facts or basis behind it. And so they spent much of the early hours going through that. And then when they shifted over to what they're calling their second article of impeachment, as they shifted over to that, it was basically trying to make the argument against what the White House team has already said was the reason for this October the 8th letter. I'm disappointed that the House has spent all their time saying, well, we want to go as fast as we possibly could, so we couldn't go to the courts like every other impeachment trial has done to be able to resolve any unresolved issue. They were saying we couldn't go to the courts, so the president said no immediately, we're not going to even try because we're going to hurry, then sit on it for a month, and then now send it over to the Senate and tell the Senate, no, you should go to the courts now. You should stretch all this out. You should go get additional witnesses. So it's a very odd process. The typical process, as has been in the past, if they have a problem with the White House, they go to the courts, they resolve it, and then actually have those witnesses actually come, have documents come. They just ignored it flat and said, if you can't go from 0 to 60 immediately, then we're just going to skip it and we're going to impeach you for that as well. That has not been typical. They kept saying that was typical of the past. Clearly that's not typical, and the timeline shows that to be fact-based. So do look forward to tomorrow and getting a chance to hear the rest of the story and the other side of this perspective.
Senator Barrasso, in terms of it being a flimsy case, what are the specific holes do you see? What are the specific facts that you think the Democrats have not proven? Like what is missing in the picture for you?
Well, first, only 1 out of 3 Americans say that what the House did was a fair process. They said they had to rush this through to remove the president from office, and yet they held the articles for 33 days. This was all done as a political stunt. Their process was completely partisan, and it was rushed, and it was sloppy. And that's what we've seen presented. It took them 4 days to do it. But to me, they did not make the case that they claim they made. And as you know, Jerry Nadler said, oh, you can find him guilty in 3 minutes. Well, I haven't come to that same conclusion.
Senator, you talked a lot about the press. Democrats talk a lot about the precedent being set today about the obstruction of Congress. But this was in reverse. It was a Democratic president, and Republicans were investigating them, and they refused to turn over documents or witness testimony. How would that stand for you? It was in reverse.
Go to the courts.
They had plenty of time to do that, but as members of the House have said, no, we didn't want to take the time because the president might get reelected. He's being impeached because of the possibility that he might get reelected. Adam Schiff has called into question the 2016 election and the 2020 election, and we know the focus, and not just, and Chuck Schumer was just here, the focus is not just on the presidential election, it's on the Senate election as well. But the president's attorney is here, so we'll give it to him now.